Demian Brady is our guest, Vice President of Research for the National Taxpayers Union. Demian, one of the things I like to talk about when I'm talking about taxes, and I don't have a better way of saying this, but there's a thing called the multiplier effect, and I see that there has to be something opposite of that, and that's the divider effect. And so when let's say local people get to keep their money, nobody puts it under the mattress any longer. Whether you're rich or poor, you do something with the money. Either pay bills, save money, invest things, or maybe you create jobs or invent something. You do something with the money, and thereby there's a multiplier effect. That when the government takes the money away and siphons off up to half of it for people's salaries that are associated with siphoning it away, there's no longer at least a local multiplier effect, and the dollar doesn't go as far as it was intended to go. And I wish people understood the value of, for instance, shopping local, but also keeping your own money to invest and spend so that creates jobs and economic activity.
Yeah, and that goes back to the devil's advocate question that you asked, because, we hear that from some people that we really ought to be raising taxes so that way we can help tackle our deficit. But when you do that, people are going to hide their money. They're not going to spend it as much. And what that means is that businesses aren't going to see as many customers, and that's not really good for the economy. I think it's also very important to remember the history here of the Trump tax cuts, because this happened so long ago. Back in 2017, they were signed into law, and a lot of stuff has happened back then. Or since then, we had the COVID lockdowns, we had layoffs and unemployment, and then after that, we had inflation. So people might not remember just how good the economy was after Trump signed those tax cuts into law. We saw wages increasing. I mean, it really kickstarted the economy. We saw lots of new jobs, wages increasing, and we want to be able to make sure that we keep these in place going forward.
So I've heard, and I don't know if this is dead on arrival already or not yet, that some Republicans considering an increase in the quote-unquote millionaire's tax.
Yeah, I've heard that as well. I haven't heard anybody come out and attach a name to that, so I don't really know the source of it. And I think that the Trump administration knocked that down. I think that was just a really bad, sloppy trial balloon from someone. We want to make sure that we have broad-based tax cuts across the board, and that's the best way to provide for a growing economy and help people keep more of what they earn.
Well, I'll tell you, one of the things that the Democrats lie on all the time is that the rich don't pay their fair share. And they pay an inordinate amount in taxes. I wish that, to tell you the truth, I wish everybody had at least some skin in the game. And I'll tell you one of the things, you've got a national audience plus a ginormous organization behind you. One of the reasons, or one of the things I've thought about for years that would cause a taxpayer revolt like you've never seen before, and that is no more withholding. At the end of the year, every single person in every business has to write a check to the government for a year's worth of withholding at the end of the year, because there's too many people that don't ever do the math on how much gets deducted every 2 weeks from their paycheck. And if they had to add it up and write a check themselves, I think you'd see a revolution.
Yeah, and then, that would address the refund issue where people think, oh, great, I'm getting a refund.
Yes.
All that really means is that you overpaid your taxes throughout the year, and you're just getting a portion of that amount back, but you still likely paid a lot in taxes. It's good to make sure that the taxpayers are aware of exactly what they are paying to the government. And to your point there, what we've seen is that it's the untold story of tax cuts going back to the 1980s, going back to Ronald Reagan. But whenever you have big tax cuts like this, that tends to make the tax code more and more progressive, where the higher income earners are paying a greater and greater share of the income tax burden. We saw that with the TCJA as well. It hasn't been fully appreciated how provisions in there like doubling the standard deduction saved a lot of people money. It saved a lot of people hundreds of millions of hours in total on time spent preparing taxes, because you don't have to itemize anymore and collect all these receipts and fill out all the paperwork. You just get a standard deduction, which freed a lot of people, lower income people, from the income tax burden. And if the tax cuts aren't preserved, that's going to snap it back into place, wasting hundreds of millions of hours of people's time and imposing a direct tax on a lot of low income people.
Something I've asked our audience to do that are business owners, and there's a lot of them out there, is to sit down with their employees and do the math for them. Take an average paycheck from that company and not only show the stub, which shows the employee's withholding, but also shows a stub where the employer has to match. And do the math for them. Add it up. And so, for instance, and then plus benefits, put the cost of benefits on there. Share with them what the property, it's public record anyway, what is the property tax for the business every year? And show them how much money is going to the government every year, which is one of the reasons businesses usually can't afford much in the way of raises to their employees. And the businesses don't advocate for themselves, and they've got they've got an audience, a captive audience at their place of business every day of every week.
Yeah, that's a good point, and they also ought to be able to make the case to their employees and to their elected officials that the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act from 2017 provided a lot of relief for small businesses, and if that goes away, they're going to have to probably lay off people, or certainly it would curtail their growth and impose a pretty big tax hike on these people.
Yeah, folks, the bottom line is we're paying too much in taxes, and what DOJ revealed is at the federal level, tens of billions, if not hundreds of billions, is being wasted. And again, and one of my big things I've been writing about and talking about lately, and this goes back to Davy Crockett when he was a congressman, and that is one of his constituents, a farmer, chewed him out for the federal government giving charity. And he says, if you have money to give charity, that means you collected more than you needed for your essential powers and duties. If I want to give charity, I will choose who to give my money to, not you take it away from me and then be the hero to the charity when you're actually spending my money and giving away my money.
Yeah, we want people to be able to make their own decisions with their own money. That's much better for the economy going forward. And Congress really needs to follow up on a lot of the good stuff that the DOJ has done and lock in these budgetary savings by getting rid of ridiculous programs. So one thing that DOJ looked into is something called the Woodrow Wilson Center, named after a truly horrible president, and it's one of the very few think tanks in the country that gets a line item in the federal budget. 1/3 of their funding comes from taxpayers. A lot of people don't know about it. So DOJ shut them down. But if Congress doesn't change the laws about this, another president in the future could just easily restore that program. So we want to be able to lock in things like this, to have real savings going forward, and find ways we can help, because we also have to find budgetary offsets for the tax cuts, so that way we're not just adding on to the deficit. We got to trim back the massive government.
Well, it is massive, and it's totally unaccountable. And I'm going to get back to a point you made earlier. Congress needs to do its job. It's supposed to hold the checkbook for the government. No spending except what authorized by Congress. They don't even know what's going out. They have no idea what's going out.
Yeah, me and a colleague just wrote this week about a reform bill from Representative Kat Kamak from Florida that would rein in the spending for unauthorized programs. The Congress is supposed to hold regular reviews of programs, but they often don't do that. But these programs will get funding anyway. So this provides a mechanism where if Congress doesn't reauthorize these programs, the funding for them is going to be gradually rescinded over 3 years until the program is defunded. So we need to expand on really good reforms like that, save a few dollars here and a few dollars there and keep doing that, and it's all going to steamroll and help rein in our national deficit.
All right, Demian, thank you so much for being with us.
Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
All right, you come back, please. Folks, this hour of the Andy Caldwell Show